Hi, I would like to welcome everyone to the 2020 International Silicone Conference. My name is Chris Poyer, General Manager, Hexpol Silicones, North America. Hexpol Silicones, along with our European company Mezgo, has over 20 years of silicone experience, with 5 dedicated plants and support centers around the globe. Along with custom compounding, we produce our own additives and pigment master batches under our Mezgo Iriday name. Using a multi-supplier purchasing strategy, Hexpol Silicones delivers the right silicone formulation within the exact specification to meet your needs.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Joe Pryweller, Conference Director for Rubber and Plastics News. I want to welcome you to Rubber and Plastics News Ask the Expert series at the International Silicone Conference. This live stream series is your opportunity to engage with professionals on the current business environment and to interact with questions. Today's Ask the Expert is hosted by Hexpol Silicone. Our speaker is Steve Hersey, General Manager of Hexpol Silicone. Steve will discuss growing a team in a difficult environment and the conditions necessary for teams to grow. He will answer your questions after the presentation. To submit a question, email rpnevents@crane.com, or if you are watching along on Rubber and Plastics News, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube sites, submit your questions through those platforms. With that, I will turn things over to Steve Hersey of Hexpol. Steve, take it away.
Hey, Joe. Thank you. Just want to take a few moments and give you guys a little bit of information about me, since many of you probably have not met me before. As Joe mentioned, I'm Steve, and I'm General Manager of the Hexpol Silicone Mixing Facility in Mogadore, Ohio. I've been involved in leading teams in a variety of settings for over 25 years, and I've led teams in the nonprofit sector, as well as in volunteer-based organizations, as well as teams in construction and manufacturing industries as well. I've been a part of stagnant teams. I've been a part of some rapidly growing, vibrant teams. And for a few brief moments, I'm just going to talk to you today about my perspectives on how to grow a team in a difficult environment. If you've been in the silicone industry for any length of time, you know that we've experienced some difficulties, if you will, over the past few years, from raw material shortages to tariffs to just a rough labor market, and then of course there's 2020 with the whole debacle that 2020 is. I just can't wait for 2021 to get here and turn that page and move on. So as we jump into this, John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership. And the first and primary component, I believe, in growing a team in any environment is that the leader has to know themselves and be willing to grow. You've got to put in some hard work growing yourself. Your team is not going to grow if you aren't growing. And every leader is unique. Every individual is unique. And so each leader is going to lead in their own distinctive way. And therefore, you have to always be seeking to know yourself. Now, if you're personally growing, and now we can talk about the environment that is needed to grow a team regardless of the external situations. I chose the term of agricultural growth in describing this session because I believe that this analogy of growth is an organic thing in regards to teams. So if you can advance to the next slide. In this analogy, just as every species of plant grows differently, and every team is going to grow in a distinct way. Every plant produces a distinct fruit, and every team is going to produce a distinct result. And now, the one thing that I do know in a general sense is that there are certain basic requirements that are necessary for healthy growth. I'm not a botanist, but what the internet tells me today is that to achieve optimal growth with plants, you have to have 5 things. You have to have air, light, warmth, water, and nutrients. And that's about the extent of my knowledge when it comes to growing plants. But I do believe that to achieve optimal growth and a team that produces healthy results, you also have to have several things. And this is not a complete list, but these, I believe, are 5 very important elements. You have to have vision, you have to have values, you have to have trust, you have to have shared commitment, and you must have communication. And so these are the 5 most critical things. And we're going to take a couple moments and just unpack those and see what that means, what that looks like. If you can go to the next slide. So as we begin to talk about number 1, vision, there has to be a clear and compelling unifying vision that's repeated frequently through any means possible so that the team understands and can rally around that vision. John Maxwell says that the vision gives team members direction and confidence. Bill Hybels said, vision is a picture of the future that produces a passion. And so it's the vision that identifies the direction of the team and motivates the team. The next component that we talk about is values. This is almost just as important as vision, but yet it's subtly different. To grow in a difficult environment or any kind of environment, there must be a shared set of common values that align the team members as they drive towards the vision. Maxwell says that shared values define the team and set the standard for a team's performance. Now, we've all seen sports teams that were just absolutely loaded with talent, but they never achieve their full potential because individual team members don't find themselves in alignment with the values of the organization or with the values of the leadership, the coach of the team. And so they all have the same vision. They all have the same goal. They want to win that championship. They want to win the Super Bowl. They want to win the championship, but they have different ways of going about it, and they fall short. And the same holds true, in my opinion, in the corporate world as well. A less qualified team that is laser focused on a goal, and they're in complete alignment with shared values of how to operate in achieving that goal, they're going to outperform a much more talented team that is ideologically fractured. So we talked about vision and values a little bit. If we go to the next slide, we're going to look at trust. Trust on a team is vital to promote decision-making and morale and innovation. Stephen Covey says, without trust, we don't truly collaborate. We merely coordinate, or at best cooperate. It is trust that transforms a group of people into a team. And in order to truly grow as a team, at the very foundation, there has to be a trust that can only be built by vulnerability between the members, a willingness to acknowledge weakness so the team can provide the strength or help that is needed to overcome. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about commitment. Another component of a growing team in a difficult environment is a shared commitment and dedication from team members to give their best effort. This can be further defined as accountability. Team members have to know they can count on one another to pick them up when necessary, or they can count on each other to complete their part of the project. Vince Lombardi put it this way. He said, individual commitment to a group effort, that is what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, and a civilization work. And so we see that shared commitment is so vital, so important to everybody coming together and rallying around the cause. And then if we go to the next slide, we're going to begin to now unpack this concept of communication. So communication is an essential element because it's like oil to all the individual components. Vision, values, trust, and commitment don't work without healthy communication. And so I believe it's that communication is the thread that just ties everything together, and it is completely essential for this growing team. Vision has to be communicated to the team members. Values have to be communicated to the team members, and then the team members communicate their alignment to those values to each other. Trust is communicated from the leader and in between the team members. Commitment is communicated to team members and between team members as well. You can go to the next slide. So there's a few key points in regards to communication. I'm going to take a little extra time here on this because it's so important. Not all communication is verbal. Most of the time, nonverbal communication on teams is what truly reveals the overall health of the team or the individual team members. And what you got to understand is that everyone on the team is communicating. The real question is, are they communicating the message that you want to be communicated? And the tremendous challenge of a rapidly growing team, a healthy, rapidly growing team or organization is communication. The more people there are on a team, the more lines of communication there are. This is what I've experienced in a couple of different organizations or teams where there was just rapid growth, healthy, rapid growth, and communication was always this speed bump that we kept bumping up against, and you had to conquer that barrier of communication every time to go to a new level of production or producing results. And so communication is also a key indicator of who belongs in the leadership roles of the team. An evaluation of how a team member communicates, what message they communicate, will determine if they're ready to take on a more significant role within that team or organization. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to just kind of talk about how this healthy team growth produces results, whether it's in a startup situation or whether it's in multiple facilities. I've been a part of startup operations in the nonprofit sector as well as in the business, and I've seen these principles work, or I've seen the lack of implementation lead to eventual demise of the operation. As a matter of fact, one startup operation where I had a senior lead role, it eventually resulted what can only be described as an operational failure. An objective autopsy of that endeavor indicated that there was a problem with the vision and with the values. There had been many transitions and the values had shifted and the vision became a little bit blurry. And so healthy teams that are successful with the startup phase of any endeavor will eventually be called upon to replicate their work to multiple facilities because of the positive results that they produce. And I believe that a healthy team will always produce positive results. And that's why a healthy team is important in any organization or any context, because that's what we desire, is positive results. When you produce positive results, people want you to repeat it. That's one thing that I've learned in 40 plus years of life. If you produce some positive results, you be guaranteed somebody is going to want you to repeat that result. And so teams that are healthy and they have success in that startup phase, then they're now asked to replicate that to multiple facilities. And then the challenge just becomes exponentially more difficult. Now these elements, they are, when acted on, still hold true. But I believe that in my experience, the challenge of going to multiple facilities is that of communication once again. Not only is there now a physical separation now where there probably wasn't that first time around, but now there's also going to be a cultural difference as well. And there will always be a cultural difference between the teams at different locations. And a truly successful team learns how to communicate effectively in spite of the differences. And it's can be just as simple as something urban versus rural. You're opening up a manufacturing facility, and you're currently based in an urban setting, and now you're going to be opening up a facility in a more rural setting. There's going to be a cultural difference, or vice versa. So in every aspect, there's always this cultural difference that's going on, and so those are some of the things that have to be overcome and can possibly be difficult, but a healthy team will learn how, through following these elements, to overcome that. And speaking of differences, man, what a year 2020 has been. We all know that. And we can jump to the next slide. If you didn't find the silicone shortage to be difficult, if you didn't find dealing with tariffs and importing materials to be difficult, if you didn't have any problems with labor, welcome to 2020, where everything just got turned upside down. And so this year has presented some really significant and unique challenges to teams and leaders all across the globe. My position is, though, my opinion is that these elements of healthy teams still hold true. And again, as we've emphasized multiple times, the wild card here is the communication factor. If you're going to lead a successful, healthy team during 2020 and the ongoing issues that we are experiencing, you're going to have to work on your communication skills once again. You have to communicate the vision, the values of the company, but you can't have a blind eye to everything that's going on around us. And so a team that's going to be successful and growing in 2020 will demonstrate a greater awareness of these soft skills in leadership and intercommunication, such as empathy and listening and vulnerability and honesty. We've got to recognize that people are going through stuff all around them all the time that's not normal. And there's an extra level of stress that's on every single person that's on your team that they're having to cope with and deal with. And so you've got to just work on those soft skills of communication with them if you're going to lead and have a healthy team in 2020. If you go to the next slide, I'm just going to break down a little bit about how to learn from mistakes. Teams have to reflect on their actions, their decisions, and communication constantly, so they can own their mistakes and failures when they happen. You know, we've made the analogy a couple different times now. We've talked about sports teams, and one thing that I do know for sure is that on Sunday night or Monday morning, those NFL teams, man, they are breaking down the film. They are reviewing every action that was taken on the field. They're reviewing every decision that was made. They're reviewing how that communication took place. And that's the only way that those teams can improve and they can move forward, is they have to identify the failures. They have to identify what went right and what went wrong, so they can try to capitalize on the good things and they can try to improve the bad things. And they do it all together. They have to own that in front of one another. And I believe that it is vulnerability that builds the trust that's needed to bind a team together into a cohesive unit. And so is just going to list a couple of resources here on teams. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. It's a great book, kind of an allegory. The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork by John Maxwell. Again, just so solid. Harvard Business Review. They've got a booklet called On Teams, and it just has a collection of the best articles and the editor's view that have been produced by Harvard Business, the 10 best articles, and it has some great stuff in it. And then another book called Team Genius, relatively new in the last 3 years. The new science of high performing organizations. And there's some really interesting statistics and studies that they have done with high performing teams in that book. Some really interesting stuff. So that's what I have. So Joe, we can take some questions.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Great presentation, and really learned a lot about how to put together a high-performing team, and looks like some good resources to look at too with this. Again, if you want to submit a question, you can send them to rpnevents@crane.com. Email them there. You'll see the screen at the bottom there with the email address on it. Or if you're watching along on our LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook platforms, you can use those platforms to ask a question. Steve, let me drill down a little bit about how you've incorporated some of the principles you've talked about at Hexpol. How have you strengthen your teams and incorporate these principles into your operation?
Well, number one, Joe, we have to model that team concept. So that's one of the things that I try to do as a leader, is model the behavior that I want out of the folks that are on my team, first of all. And then we do things intentionally together, like that are not work, so to speak. We'll take some time. We'll go the little pizza joint down the street from the plant, and we'll just say, hey, we're all going to meet up down here after work, and I'll just buy everybody on the team pizza, and we just hang out for a while, and we intentionally engage in activities that are not work, so that we can just continue to develop that bond of communication with one another. And then another thing that we do is we'll pick a book. For lack of a better term, it would be like a book club, so to speak. We pick a book, we kind of get it for everybody. We'll read through it. We'll have certain times, specific times, where we'll discuss the principles in those books and how they can help us and how we can grow from that. And then we just continually try to emphasize and reiterate the vision of our team, of our company, over and over again. Tying the past, the present, and the future all together, so that there's this continuity that so that the people who have contributed in the early phases don't feel like they're being left out, but those who are here right now, they know that they're valued, and then we've got this passion or this drive to move toward the future. And what we've seen is that this healthy team has really driven some great results for us over the last 5 years. We've experienced an extremely low turnover rate in employees on our team. We've experienced a time frame of 5+ years of safety with no recordable incidences. We've made acquisitions over the years, and we work to integrate every team into this concept. And ultimately, we've if you look at the business side of it, Joe, we've experienced double-digit growth in percentage every year since the inception of Hexpol Silicone, in spite of all these difficult circumstances that we've had to overcome and deal with. So those are some of the ways that we work through that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that a little bit. I know talent and retention is finding talent and retaining talent too is an important part of an organization. And sounds like you get to know your people a little bit beyond just how they work, but kind of know them as individuals. Does that seem to be a key to success in getting them to feel really part of a whole group, that more than just go to the workplace and come home after?
Yeah, definitely. We try to make sure that there's some kind of personal touch with every employee in the building every single day. Which obviously is a little bit more difficult right now with the pandemic, and I'm working at home right now, which is a little more difficult. But I try to intentionally reach out, shoot a text message to some of the guys every single day, trying to just touch base with different people and through different ways, however we can, just to let them know, hey, we care. You're more than just a part or somebody out on the floor, but you're a part of this team. If you treat every person as though they're a volunteer, and just show value, express value and appreciation for what they're doing, even if they are being paid, it really pays off huge dividends in the end. Oh,
for sure. In regards to any challenges, is there anything in terms of teams or your team in the future that keeps you up at night that you have to think about?
Yeah, there's a lot that keeps me up at night right now.
Hopefully not all night long, but anyway.
Yeah, no, not always necessarily about teams, but but yeah, there's things that keep me up, and really it's just partly because of my personality and who I am and the things that I'm concerned about as an individual and as a leader. As I said, everybody has a distinctive way of leading, but for me, probably the things that keep me up at night are when I know that there's some discord or some feelings in between team members that I'm going to have to step in and try to work through some of those differences, and just you got to have to own it. You got to step into those areas of conflict and try to have open and clear communication. So those kind of things keep me up at night as I kind of try to think through, okay, how am I going to talk to this person and bring them together with this person and resolve these differences. So that's probably the main thing in regards to teams.
I guess the key thing is getting through to people and having them understand. I imagine it's not easy always to communicate the company vision or the values of that matter too. And this, you have to get their understanding of everybody's different. Is that something that's a challenge at times?
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's where, one thing that I do is I really try to study the personality, my own personality, and those who are on the team to the best of my ability. Now, I can't do it for every single person in the organization, but those who directly report to me now, I really make a point of trying to understand their personality and the way that they think, the way that they communicate, because again, everybody communicates. Some people communicate differently than others. And, one of the things that I mentioned there on one of the slides was that when you evaluate somebody's communication, it helps you understand where their role needs to be on the team. And sometimes somebody can be communicating something, and if you don't understand where they're coming from or understand their particular personality, you can view their communication as negative and therefore put them off to the side and relegate them into a category of, well, they're a negative person, they're not behind the vision, when maybe they are behind the vision. If you understand a little bit more about their motive and their perspective and where they're coming from, they are 100% behind the vision. They just are communicating some concerns in a different way than maybe you would communicate them. And so you have to understand the people on your team and break that down and evaluate it, spend some time thinking about it before you just jump right in and react to a situation.
I imagine communication is the most important part of the whole equation. You talked about trust and vision and values and some other areas, but communicating that has to be a big challenge at times anyway. And do you have any tips on how to get everybody on board with one vision or one set of values so that everything's uniform, and even individually in plants or across plants, which I imagine is even bigger challenge at times?
Right. Again, that goes back to understanding the people that you're working with. If you can understand what motivates an individual, what are they interested in? And then if you can tie the vision that the company needs or that the team needs, if you can tie that vision into what motivates that individual, you will have their support in achieving the goal that is before you. But again, that requires some heavy work and really focusing on people. And I reckon, and sometimes, you don't have that luxury of time or ability, but whenever possible, if you can just try to, understand, hey, what makes this person, I know this guy over here, he's motivated by, title and position and finance. So if there's some way I can tie in what we're asking him to do and show him, hey, there's going to be a promotion, there's going to be something down the road that's going to tie into this personal vision that you have that blends with the team vision, you're going to get complete buy-in.
Great. So you find what really motivates people, and you only do that by getting to know them, I guess, and working from there. Let's talk a bit about COVID. You mentioned that it makes things a little more challenging this year. Obviously, we're all waiting for 2021 to come around sooner rather than later. How do you see COVID impacting leadership? I mean, you mentioned a bit about having to deal with people through Zoom and other types of online things. And how else does COVID impact leadership? What are your thoughts on that?
As I said, the impact on leadership is that, it's requiring leaders to be much more conscientious about what they're communicating, how they're communicating. And at the same time, there's no right answer. That's the thing that's really most difficult is there's no answer that's going to make everybody happy. And I can't remember who it was that said it. I did not say it, but somebody said, if you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader, go sell ice cream. And that's the biggest challenge of 2020 is that whatever decision you make in regards to masks in your facility, whatever decision you make in regards to whatever, somebody's going to be upset, somebody's going to be offended. You just got to make a decision and go with it, and then focus on the communication to the team and explaining, why this decision was made. And here's why, and how it aligns with the team's values and the team's vision. You just got to explain, hey, we are working to protect our business and we're working to protect you. And this is the way that I feel as team leader that we can best do that. And, if there's a different way, you're welcome to talk to me about it. But until you convince me otherwise, this is the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, that makes sense. A big, what really surprised me a little bit, we talked about vulnerabilities, and you're not afraid to let people know if a mistake was made or something else. Is that difficult that must be difficult for a leader to do at times, to reveal vulnerabilities and you're not always right.
And that's where the leader has to step up and leaders lead. And you've got to own that sometimes, and it can be painful. But if you want your team members to do that, you have to do it first. You have to show them. And as an example, a few months ago, there was I made a mistake. I went into went into one of the computer systems and changed something that was in the schedule. And I thought I was good because they hadn't started mixing it yet. And I made some changes, and then, and then there was some problems later on out on the floor. And I realized, and I got upset, and I thought, man, those guys messed it up or whatever. And I was upset, and I kind of expressed my discontent and displeasure with what was going on out there. And then I took a step back. It was lunchtime. I drove off to get some lunch. And while I was getting lunch, I stopped and began to reflect and go back through the process of the decisions that had been made. And I realized, you know what? I was the one who actually messed that up, and the guys on the floor actually caught it. And so I came back at the end of the day. At the end of the shift, I asked the supervisor if I could have 10 minutes, and we shut down production early. And I just stepped out there and said, listen, guys, I got upset earlier today, and I need to apologize. I reflected on this, and here's what I did wrong. Here's why I did it wrong. And this is the steps we're going to take to correct it. And I broke it down into principles so that the guys would understand we can apply these principles in every situation, not just the mistake that I had made, but so that they could repeat those same steps in their own daily lives, whether it be at home or whether it's at work, and they could, and it has paid dividends.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a good way to end the conversation today, Steve. Do you have any parting comments or final words you want to leave the audience with?
I would just say, if you're looking to achieve some positive results within your team, you need to, and you're struggling to get there, if you really focus on some of these principles and focus in on how to develop those and build those, I think you will begin to see things turn around, and you'll be able to move forward and achieve some of those results that you desire.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Steve. Steve Hersey of Hexpol Silicone, for offering some great ideas on growing a team in today's difficult environment. Rather be in this difficult environment than selling ice cream, I guess. So that's always good. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out directly to Steve through his email address listed on the screen below. So look for that, and Steve would be glad to talk to you a little more about growing a team and some of the experiences that he's had at Hexpol. I want to thank you all for watching our Rubber and Plastics News Ask the Expert series at the International Silicone Conference. We have another Ask the Expert live stream tomorrow, Thursday at noon Eastern Time. Norm Riley of Wacker presenting on liquid silicone rubber, application-specific products and technologies. And you don't want to miss the other great sessions this week at the International Silicone Conference. The conference continues this afternoon with sessions at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and 4 p.m. Eastern, with presentations by Detlef Klingberg of Wacker Chemical on interesting aspects of special cables with silicones, Anand Bora of Moldex 3D North America discussing LSR simulation with pin movement and barrel compressibility, and Nicholas Lugo of Hexpol Silicone on advantages of silicone rubber and safety with a focus on wire and cable. All conference sessions and Ask the Expert live streams will be available to registered attendees on rubbernews.com. That's www.rubbernews.com after the conference has completed. I'm Joe Pryweller with Rubber and Plastics News. Stay tuned for a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I would like to welcome everyone to the 2020 International Silicone Conference. My name is Chris Poyer, General Manager, Hexpol Silicones, North America. Hexpol Silicones, along with our European company Mezgo, has over 20 years of silicone experience, with 5 dedicated plants and support centers around the globe. Along with custom compounding, we produce our own additives and pigment master batches under our Mezgo Iriday name. Using a multi-supplier purchasing strategy, Hexpol Silicones delivers the right silicone formulation within the exact specification to meet your needs.